You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
All right, folks, welcome back to CrimsonCast. Scott here with you. Indiana football did something I think we were not expecting. Playing pretty well at Penn State. They ended up losing 33-24. Again, finding another spectacular way to lose. It's just always interesting stuff with IU football. Unfortunately, Galen is busy this weekend. Maybe he's in the Galapagos Islands. I should make fun of him. No, Galen is busy this weekend, so we have Taylor Lehman joining us. I'll get to Taylor in 1 second. First off, just want to remind everyone to check out Home Field Apparel. It's hoodie season, folks. I broke out the Marshall hoodie. I was telling you I am going to order the Idaho hoodie. There's tons of great hoodies, and if hoodies aren't your thing, they got bomber jackets. They have everything you could possibly want. Check them out, Home Field Apparel. They are friends of the pod, friends of the whole home network. And use the promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your first purchase. Also, we'll say with Indiana basketball kicking off, you have Assembly Call coming back. Just the home network is like engaged. It's like the old, I'll date myself here. It's like Voltron. Like all the pieces are coming together. The home network is officially activated. We are ready to go. But excited to have our friend from Bite Size Bison, who is one of the stalwarts in Indiana football coverage. We're few, but we are mighty. It was funny today. Indiana's playing really well. I'm like on Twitter, like searching. It's just like there's the same 6 people tweeting about IU football. It's like a fan base that's just been beat down. Again, Indiana loses 33-24 at Happy Valley. Taylor, good to have you on, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Scott. Yeah, no, I was noticing the same thing. It's always funny because early in the season, sometimes I look at the notifications to see if
Yep.
I'm missing any replies or something, and see who's interacting with my tweets, and it's like a pretty diverse group of people. And then today it was just like the same, like maybe 10 people.
Yep.
I was like, yeah, that's about right.
And I know you are you're recovering from a Halloween party. I want to guess what. So I will let the listeners know. One time in college, I went as Goldberg the wrestler. So that was one of my like younger Halloween costumes. I haven't dressed up in a while. I did have a good costume 2 years ago. But Taylor, I want to guess. Were you? Did you go as just like offensive coordinator, IU offensive coordinator, next hire, and just made everybody confused, or what'd you go as?
I joked with my girlfriend that I should go as Tom Allen. I have like a over ear headphones with an IU hat, and I could get like a cheap leather jacket or
Yeah.
something and put IU on the front of it. No, I always go in a couple's costumes with my girlfriend. It means a lot more to her than it does to me. So we were the Milky Way, so I just like created these little felt planets and attached them to a black sweatshirt, and she dressed up as the sun. So
Okay.
yeah,
That's not bad.
it was cool. It was fun.
You know what's funny is like you hear couples costume and everybody's like, oh, like you goes Kelsey and T Swizzle. But what's funny is like everyone I've talked to, who people like you and other people, like a couple of my friends in the street who do couples costumes, like no one's doing it. I think that might be the costume. It's like everyone's zagging, so no one, like if you did Taylor Swift and Kelsey right now, I think you might be the only ones because I think everyone's like, oh, everyone's gonna do that, and ends up no one's doing it.
Exactly. It's the Kelsey and Taylor Swift, and then also the Barbie and Ken.
Yes. Yeah.
I talked to a lot of people trying to avoid those two. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
although
right.
I like 3 years ago, we'll get off Halloween talk, hot Halloween talk here in a second. Like 2 or 3 years ago, my neighbors have a crazy Halloween party. It's the one where it's side story. I will tell in the pod maybe next week. It's the one where I had a former Purdue basketball player steal something out of my yard. It's a wild story. But at that party, like I was like, what can I dress up as? My wife and I did a couple's costume, and we did Forrest Gump and Jenny. And I was like, I had not seen that costume in years. And there was 2 other couples as Forrest Gump and Jenny at the same party, including a similar Forrest Gump to me. I was like, I haven't seen Forrest Gump 10 years before. I'm not going to see it 10 years after. It's like, I guess it's just the zeitgeist. Everyone gets in the same mindset at the same time.
We actually saw Forrest Gump last night.
Okay.
It was good. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump is still around. I didn't see any Jennies though.
Yeah. So, all right, Indiana loses 33-24 at Penn State. What's kind of your, and we're doing this, Jared at Assembly Call has always been like, I want you to do a really close post-game reaction. Normally Galen and I take some time to calm down. Without Galen here, like, the handcuffs are off Scott. We're like doing this at maybe a half hour after the game. What are your initial thoughts from that game? Are you like happy, sad? Like what's your main takeaway?
I tweeted we kind of took the scenic route to Indiana covered, you know.
Yeah.
I, I guess surprised that the front seven specifically overachieved. And I think that that's kind of my biggest feeling. It's man. I guess I was kind of thinking to myself, I guess it was kind of nice to be back. The things that we used to complain about with IU football, right? Was like they'll get so close to beating these good teams, and then they find a way to lose. They always find a way to lose in the second half. And I was like, well, I guess, it's a taste of that again instead of just, what we were anticipating, which was, a huge loss. So I think probably a little more coming out of a little more positive because I went in a lot more negative. But I don't know. How are you feeling, Scott?
Yeah, I listened to Galen in the pregame really kind of solidified what I felt too, which is like it's you go into this like you're assuming you're going to lose. Like you just don't expect to win at Penn State. Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State are kind of games where it's like I'll take whatever, and I'm not expecting a win. And you hope that you can at least find something to build on. That said, the frustrating part for me is they played really well. And even after the first half, you're like, all right, well, this might be feeling the same as like maybe the first couple series of Michigan, where it's like you play really well and then it's just like the wheels fall off. The wheels didn't fall off. Like you kept the pressure on Penn State. You put them in a tough spot. The frustrating part for me is I'm never going to go into a season or a game being like, we should win at Penn State. That said, you get to a point where it's like, you just intercept their quarterback. There's 6 minutes to go. It's kind of like everything's out the table. Like the crowd is quiet. So it's really not like a normal, Happy Valley experience. That's the game. Like that's the game to go for it. And I leave frustrated. Not that we lost, because again, I'm not like I don't go into a season and be like, God, we got to beat Penn State, because that would be idiocracy. But it's like you have an opportunity to go take that game. And I don't get on X much, but I got on X, and it's like, it felt like we were playing to tie. We ran 3 straight rushes right after that interception. And it's like, I was thinking to myself, I tweeted this out there, that it's like you very rarely do you see upsets like this happen where you back into it. Like you have to go take it. Like it was there. You have to go take it. Now I know Sorsby had a hurt shoulder. That also could be maybe where, having 5 quarterbacks where you keep rotating through, like maybe you could have gone with Tevin Jackson. You could have swapped out that. Like you had your 2 choices there. But it's like, go take it. And that's what was really frustrating to me, is they didn't do it. And then I started thinking, I'll ask you, you probably know this, Galen would know this off the top of his head because he knows everything. But, I was starting to think like, all right, you run 3 straight rushes. When was the last time we had a rushing touchdown this season? Do you know?
No,
Because I went back and looked. It was against Rutgers. We had a rushing touchdown, but it was Brendan Sorsby. So I even dug a little deeper. The last time we had a running back score a rushing touchdown, and that was against Akron. So we haven't had a running back score a rushing touchdown this season in the Big Ten, which is a whole separate podcast we could talk about. But it's like, that's the part where I get frustrated, where it's like you don't score a lot of points running the ball this season with this team. You have 3 downs, take 1 shot, because you're probably not going to a bowl this season. The season feels like it's falling away. This is one of those opportunities where, again, there's 6 minutes left. You have a shot to like put a knockout, and maybe Penn State still comes back and scores that touchdown and you lose by 3. It's like, maybe it doesn't matter, but you have a chance to like go take it. And time and time again, it feels like we play from it. We're scared. It's like we're playing the conservative. Normally in football, you go for the points and see what your defense does. Like that, you can't do that. You're IU. It sometimes makes me wonder where this head, because if you're Tom Allen, it's like, if you could somehow score a touch, just take 1 shot, score a touchdown there, maybe Penn State's maybe they're really freaked out. If you somehow win this game, it changes the paradigm of the season, the extension. Like it changes everything. Instead, we're here with 3 rushes, and then you end up losing kind of the way that I think many people expect. So that's like my main takeaway from the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I was kind of baffled, and I've been really racking my head as to why they would have gone so conservative. Because at first I was like, that's like coward ball from Carey. And then I was like, well, maybe it was more than Rod Carey, like, because like, so something that Galen has talked a lot about in the past is that Tom Allen approaches the game as the offense is more of a complementary
Yep.
piece to the defense. And so I've kind of been rolling around this idea in my head, without the press conference. We haven't seen what he says in the press conference yet. I'm sure it's going to be very enlightening, but I think I've been thinking about what he might have been thinking, which was perhaps offense, don't blow this, play for the tie, put our defense in a position to play for a win, whether that's in regulation or in overtime, and give them opportunities. They just created this takeaway, you know.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I but
No,
I also know,
I think it's right. I mean, I think that's the way he
yeah,
was thinking.
yeah, but then there are people who are debating about the Brendan Sorsby injury, the shoulder injury. But he had just thrown that touchdown pass to Omar
Yeah.
Cooper the drive before. Um, and I don't know about putting Taven, and I'm glad he didn't switch the quarterback at all. I'm kind of tired of that. But I think that you just throw. Like, I think
Yeah.
he's already shown that he can throw on his shoulder. It's not going to require a ton of throws. Um, I think, like you were saying, what is there to lose? Like, he just said last week that he felt like the season was slipping away, and then he responds with 3 runs when they have a chance to take the lead, and it is also baffling to me.
Yeah, well, and it's like you have, the only thing they did in the first half that was good was they had 2 pass plays. Like they had 2 pass plays that broke. You look at the drive chart for the first half, it's 3 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 1 play for a 90-yard touchdown, 3 plays punt, 1 yard for a 69-yard touchdown, 6 plays drive, and then over on downs, and then an interception. So I mean, the offense wasn't like the offense was like functioning amazingly. They just had two great plays, which is awesome, and that counts. But they were both passing plays. Like, you've shown that you can shred this Penn State defense a little bit. Yeah, and then it's not only that, those 3 running plays in the second half. You have the drive where they have a 14-play drive. They get 56 yards. I think they go for it once on 4th, and then you're in the. I think they finally get in the red zone, but they miss a field goal attempt. And again, it's kind of like it's like you've already gone for it once. Like, I was kind of like, go for it again. Like, just take a shot. Like, your defense has been holding up. Again, it's like, I don't quite know what the mode or like what the headspace is on this offense, because like they'll go for it on 4th and they won't. Then they'll kick a field goal and they'll play safe. But sometimes they'll go. I don't know, but it's still baffling. But again, I also walk away. It's like, look, they played really hard. They came back, and this team showed a lot of resilience to play hard. So you can take some of that away as a positive. It's just, there's not a lot of opportunities that you get to win at a place like Penn State. And, all the historical stuff can be put aside. I go back to it again. It's like there's 5 minutes left. You have the ball. They're stunned. I've been watching college football for a long time. Normally, the way that upset happens is that the upsetting team throws a pass right there and just goes for the jugular. Like, they score a touchdown, and then suddenly it's like, oh, shit. Like, oh, my, like, this is real. Versus like what we did, which is you just very rarely see upsets happen that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think in the second half they had a couple successful drives. One that was 12 plays, ended in the missed field goal. One that was
Yeah.
14 plays, which was that touchdown. And you know, I just based on the first half, I don't think that there, was a lot of room for those types of drives to be replicated. And I think you would pretty much use your opportunities here.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a lot of those again. So if you're presented with a short field, then take advantage of it. Like you were saying, like, take the upset. You're not going to find it if you're playing for a tie. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I was encouraged by some of the things from the offense and getting their wide receivers involved. Finally, DeQuise Carter, man. Like,
Yeah.
that's something Galen and I joke about between each other all the time, because I wrote a whole, like, an entire bite-sized bison about DeQuise Carter because I thought he was going to play a major role in the team this year. And I've been really singing his praises. And he like 8th game into the season, he's finally used the way that he is, you know, made to be used.
Yep.
And so I was like, wow, who would have thought? But even that play looked like an accident.
Yep.
Just like those two receivers shouldn't have been that close to each other. Some wires got crossed there, but it worked out. And then just that Donovan McCulley blown defensive assignment by Penn State. And then like you were saying, it's really just the two good plays in the first half, and then those who weren't watching the game very closely thought Rod Carey was calling a good game at that point. But really, it was just the couple of drives that were in the second half that I thought were impressive.
Yeah.
But
And
overall,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think it was the front. I think it was just, I think the difference in the game was the defensive front seven. I think they were the ones that had IU in the position by halftime. And if there was any havoc in the second half, they were the ones creating it. It was a defensive pressure and interception at the end of the Josh Sanguinetti interception was caused by defensive pressure on the quarterback. So I've really been tough on the front seven and bite-sized Bison, and I thought they definitely performed better than I was expecting them to.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the defense, and they gave up 31 points, and that's been kind of our bugaboo is like the defense is giving up over 30 points in basically every Big Ten game outside of the Ohio State game. Wouldn't have guessed that. The odds on that would have been insane. I was like all over. But this is one where, outside of the busted play, which did happen, it was, again, like, I don't know how you get one-on-one coverage and just tackle the guy. Don't let him, but it's always like, just don't get beat deep. All of that said, it's like, it does count, but you take that away, it's like, that's 24 points up to that point. And while, again, you keep putting the defense in these positions where it's like, you've got to make stops. And we've been tough on the defense. The defense has not been doing well in the Big Ten. That said, 44 points against Maryland is not good enough. But to me, you hold Penn State to 24 for most of the game and 31 for the whole game at Penn State. I feel like the defense did mostly what we needed them to do. And that's why I'm focusing more on the offense is you can't expect an IU team to just go, and the defense that we've had this year just be like, we're going to only hold Penn State to 21 at home. Like, as tough as Penn State's offense has been, they still have a really good front line. They still run the ball really well. It's just frustrating to get beat basically in the air it's just like, it continues to be whack-a-mole. It's like they don't really get the running game going, but they end up crushing us in the air at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 57-yard score from the least explosive offense in the
I
country
know.
that's pretty backbreaking. But
Yeah.
there's an interesting stat offensively, and I know it's probably just from the two big passing plays, but this performance in yards per dropback, they had 12.23 yards per dropback, IU did, and that would have finished in the top 2% of performances in 2022. And I'm just like, and so obviously a lot of that comes from the yardage that was gained from the two big plays. But at the same time, I thought Brendan Sorsby really played well in the second half. He had some really good throws, and it just kind of further highlights like, why would you not throw in that last opportunity there? No, and I think and kind of what had me back in that headspace, Scott, was the fact that there will probably be people that will say that the 57-yard touchdown after the field goal, after it was tied, negates any frustration of not scoring a touchdown on that drive after the interception, because they would have been down by a field goal again. But I don't know, man. I just think that's just loser ball,
No, I completely agree. And I think that, what that doesn't, to me, what you're missing there is, let's just play the alternate reality. Indiana does get the interception. The crowd is shocked. It's like the Penn State crowd is completely shocked. If in one of the next 2 or 3 plays, let's just play alternate reality, you throw a pass and, not even a touchdown, you just get it within the 5 and then you punch it in, or you just throw up, like, literally next play, you just throw a 20-yard touchdown pass, or, do something and you get a touchdown there, you're up by, at that point, you're up by 4, right? So,
Yep.
Yeah, you're up by 4, but it's like, what that does is it changes Penn State's mentality. Again, now Penn State is like, they're freaked out. Like, it's like, again, it's like an oh shit moment. Like, we are about to lose to Ohio State and now we're going to lose to Indiana at home. Like, this is like, our season is now off the rails. they are going to approach that next offensive series differently. I just have a hard time believing they're going to take their quarterback who just threw an INT and have him chuck it 60 yards down the field. They're probably going to play a much different style. They're probably going to try and pound the ball and get to a point where they can kick a field goal, get to overtime, and let us make the next mistake. But instead, it's a tied game where now it's like, if you're Penn State, it's like, all right, the chance of Indiana, picking this off and doing a pick six is always there, but it's very unlikely. So you're much more likely to take a shot because, like, worst case, we're going to overtime. Whereas suddenly, if you're down by 4 points, I mean, you can't even go. You got to get a touchdown. Like, it's just going to change the whole mentality of the game. And I just don't know if Penn State runs that play. Maybe they do. Maybe they still do, and we're down by 3. And but it's to your point, it's like it's loser ball. Like you have to go take the win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree.
And you see this the time with Indiana, where same thing you saw in the Ohio State game. Like, I forget the exact circumstances. Like, we had the ball. It's like, I think we were down like 10-3 or something. And it's like, we just ran it 3 straight times and went to halftime. It's like, we'll just take, it's like, stop taking it. Like, you had a chance to, again, you're not going to knock Ohio State out in the first half, but you could go into halftime 10-10 or take a shot at it and be like, hey, these guys they're coming. Like, versus like, oh, we know when it gets tight, they're going to tighten up and they're going to do the conservative thing. Like, I always look at it from the other fan base's perspective. If you're Penn State, what do you want Indiana to do? I want you to run it up the middle 3 times. I don't want you going forward on 4th.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and just a very surface level thought I was having right after the game was during that Ohio State game when Walt Bell said that he felt that he, pitter pattered for too long.
Yep.
I feel like these 2 things are tied a little bit. If you had, I'm not saying that, they shouldn't have made a change at offensive coordinator, but this is kind of a symptom of changing regimes, right?
Yep.
Is like the lessons that you learn before the change don't always transition into the new regime. So I don't know, like if maybe a lesson had been learned from that Ohio State game, like you were just saying, maybe they don't run it up the middle 3 times, maybe, but also I've thought that their approach to these teams, the big 3 teams, has been really strange. Like the Ohio State game, that game was very weird to me, like the weirdest Ohio State Indiana game I've ever seen. I don't think any team was interested in competing, and but
don't tell
Michigan
the TV partners. Hey, we just signed a $500 million TV deal.
Yeah, first game of the season. Yeah,
yeah, this is awesome. Both teams are checked out. Fantastic.
Right. Then the Michigan game, they're trying to figure out who the quarterback was,
right.
and
That's
then here
point.
Against Penn State, it's and I think that's why I saw some comments that Tom Allen made on the radio after the game to Don Fisher, and he was saying, really proud of the offense, really proud of the way they played. Now we're in playoff mode. And I'm assuming by that he means that it's like they have to win out to get to a bowl game, because they have 6 losses now. And I was like, I just personally do not appreciate that observation immediately after that game. I just with how winnable it was and how the other 2 of the 3 big 3 games have been treated, I was like, that's just strange to me. I don't know. I thought that was a weird thing to say right after the clock hit 0.
Yeah, that's. We'll move on. I need time to digest that. I'm not ready to say anything about that.
Right.
But I mean, this is where, I don't quite know who to blame, but it's like this team has always been super tight when things get tight, and they just default to the most conservative offensive style. And the only constant has been Tom Allen. Like, you've gone through multiple offensive coordinators, and like, this is what this team wants to do when it gets really close, or when they get in the red zone, or when they get in high leverage situations. They do not want to do anything risky, and it has to come from the top down, because you've had multiple offensive coordinators, and this is, like you said, like, this is exactly the way they acted in the Ohio State game when they were really close, and they did the same thing. And so it and again, as the head coach, it's like you could easily get on the headset and be like, hey, run one pass in this 3-down series. And like, guess what? Your offensive coordinator is going to come up with a pass play. So I don't want to keep harping on it because, again, in the end, it's like I hate the fact that we've kind of just seeded 3 losses every single year. It's like, all right, well, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, like those are just a bridge too far, but they are. Like fundamentally they are. It's annoying. It sucks. And like, we're one of the only Big Ten or SEC schools that just automatically has losses and just assumes like you can't expect to go in and win that game. It's like, well, you can. I want to take a step back though from the game. And like, I'm really trying to be positive from this. And, in the preview, Galen was talking about how, his hope is that we can just take something away here and, hit the reset button and build on it. And on the surface, you feel like you would be able to do that, and that you had a lot to build on. But here is trying to be positive, Taylor. I really am. But I'm going to go back and look at the last couple of years. So if you look at 2018, and a lot of them are actually against Penn State, the last times that we've played one of these top-tier teams really well. So in 2018, we played Penn State. We lost 33-28 at home. We then went on to lose 3 of our next 4 games. That was a team that had 4 wins, was fighting for a bowl berth, went out and then lost at Minnesota, not a great Minnesota team, lost at home to Maryland, and then lost at home to Purdue. So in that year, a close win showing something against Penn State led to a 1-3 kind of finish when you had a bowl possibly there for the taking. In 2019, it's actually Penn State again. We play Penn State pretty tough, 34-27. We lose to them near the end of the year. We then finish the year 1-2. And it's not a great analysis because our next game is home to Michigan. It's like, all right, again, whatever. Michigan doesn't count. But it's like then we play a 4-8 or 4-7 at that time Purdue team. We have to win that game to get to a bowl, and we go as close as we possibly can, 44-41. We squeak out a game that you have to get. And then we go and lose the Outback Bowl to Tennessee. So I wouldn't say that like that win against Penn State really changed the fortune of that season for a good thing. I'm going to leave 2020 out because we had that was a good team that won a lot of games. So it's not like a bad team. It's not the best analogy there. But yes, the Penn State win in 2020 kind of propelled that season, but that was a good team. The other example, there's 2 of them in the 2021 season. We played that Cincinnati team at home really tight. I mean, that was a 14-point loss, 38-24, but that was a really tight game. They went on to finish that season 1-8 after beating Western Kentucky and then just giving up the rest of the year. But they also played, 9th-ranked Michigan State that year really tight, 20-15 at home, and then just they were done. Like after that, they were completely done. So, while I do want to look at this and say, hey, there's some real positives to grow from this game, and we did exactly what Galen wanted us to do in the pregame was have something to build on, I am nervous that the history of the Tom Allen regime outside of 2020 is that after these really close losses against really good teams, we haven't shown that we take that and build off of it. Do you think this year could be different?
I think it could.
Okay,
I
good.
think it could. I think sometimes these games could definitely be deflating. I think the thing that's encouraging to me is that I think it would be really easy for the defense, specifically the front 7, to continue to be, weak and the way that it has been recently. And I didn't think that they were that in this game. And even though they did give up more than 30 points, I just think that the front 7 was really strong. And I think you carry that into these games, like specifically next week against Wisconsin, who really can only run the ball.
Right.
So you carry that into that, and what I've also been concerned about, I wrote about it in the last Bite Size Bison, is that Indiana had been prioritizing the run game on offense, and I had the graphic where there was success in the rushing game. It was marginal and gradual, but along with that, there was a decrease in the success rate in passing, and then along with all of that, the offense was getting worse in the SP plus formula. So I thought that they had a good mix of pass plays in there, and that they were pretty successful. I'm on a website. GameOnPaper.com is a really good website to follow if you guys don't know about it, but it kind of shows just like successful plays based off of EPA, and it kind of breaks the game down in some really good in good ways. So IU ran a total of 63 plays, and 20 of them were considered successful, which is 38%. That's not very good. But 10 of them were passing into, yeah,
Yeah.
and 10 were passing and 10 were rushing. But 45% of their passing plays were considered successful. And so, if they can carry that into the rest of the season, I think that's something to be encouraged from Rod Carey, who, like, my concern with Rod Carey taking over was that there would be a ton of running and not a lot of passing, because just given his history, given the end of last season when he took over as offensive line coach, I just thought that there wouldn't be much passing in this offense from now on. So seeing the success that it had, I think that is something you can build off of offensively. And if there was either side of the ball that I was hoping to see something from, it was the offensive side. So that is what I'm excited about. But I could also see how a loss like this could be deflating for a team. But I think for this team specifically, I mean, it looked like it was already I mean, they kind of looked dead in the water, Scott. And so, like, just showing any kind of life, I think could do a lot of work for a locker room. And what are your thoughts? Do you think they can carry this?
I agree with you. I mean, I think if anything was going to be deflating, it would have been losing at home to Rutgers, having the Shianu get Gatorade baths on your feet, like that was, and just basically being non-competitive in the second half. Like they looked, I don't want to say checked out. They just looked overpowered by, like, that was just a rough loss to Rutgers. And then when you look at, like, oh my god, now we got to go to Penn State. Penn State, as Galen said, was like they're pissed, like they lost it, like everything was arrows pointing toward disaster, and they came out and looked really tough. And at times, if you just didn't know any of the history or anything, you're like, man, that team in red really is pushing around, like they were blitzing, and it's like the as you said, the defensive seven, most of the time they were getting pressure to the quarterback. You would just be like, man, is that a Georgia team? Is that Oklahoma? Like they looked really, really good. So I'm encouraged by that. And so I don't see this as being a deflating loss. My concern is that it, things just can't ever work out in a good way. Like all of the crazy Russian roulette that we had at quarterback seemed to finally coalesce on Brandon Sorsby. It's like, okay, fine, now we're here. Like we've I don't know why it took us to Halloween to pick a quarterback and to get through this charade, but like, great, we have a quarterback. Maybe next year we can do it in like September, but fine, we have a quarterback. Now with this injury, it's like, is it going to open up Tom Allen to his worst instincts, where it's like, hey, now we're not going to name a starter, now we can bring Jackson back, hey, Dexter Williams, Dexter, come on out, Dexter, you can play. Like, is it going to, are we going to start the Dexter Williams game where now we're going to run like a quadruple option, just something we've never seen before? Like that's my biggest concern. Is obviously I want Sorsby to, I mean, college kids, I want them to be healthy. I hope he's healthy. I don't want him to play if it's going to do further injuries. Like that's obvious, kind of a no S moment. But if he's healthy enough to play, I hope this doesn't kind of bring all the quarterback stuff into flux, because there's enough problems with this team that you don't need to be monkeying around with that at the most important position. And I'm just concerned because it looked like, all right, like after this game, take that, one injury out. It's like, it looked like, all right, we have quarterback figured out, and it would be nuts to suddenly be like, all right, let's bring the Dexter Williams experiment in. Nothing against Dexter. It's just like, he's coming, like he's just not coming like this. We have a quarterback now, let's do it. And so that is my biggest fear, is this kind of opens it up to let Allen start monkeying with that. And I think the team has shown, you have 2 games against 2 power 10 teams on the road. In one game, you were flipping quarterbacks all over the place. It didn't work well. In another game, you had a coherent plan, and it seemed to work a lot better. Like, let's continue to do that. I'm very worried that this is going to throw all of that into flux.
Also, yeah, so Brendan Sorsby's injured, right? So let's consider that he can play, right? So
Okay.
even if he is healthy, I don't know if I just carry some like doubt with me now. I'm just like, is this over? Is this really over? The broadcast is like, oh, they've really settled on the quarterback, Brendan Sorsby. And I was like, yeah, but Dexter Williams is off the injury report. So like, is this over? But no, what's the standard for the quarterback? Right? So because Brendan Sorsby just led the offense into a very close situation where they almost beat Penn State at Penn State,
Yep.
one of the best defenses. This is a team that was expected to compete for a college football playoff spot before losing to Ohio State. So, um, you know, is that the quarterback that IU wants, that the staff wants, that the fans want? We've seen Taven throw well, and we've seen Brendan Sorsby throw well, and you know, ultimately, what do we want at that position? But no, I agree, and I think I'm just I walk away thinking that Brendan Sorsby can do what IU wants the quarterback to do in this offense
Yeah.
and just move forward with that if he can. And but yeah, I mean you're right. Like it seems like as soon as we do get that quarterback, um, something happens, and then they take the ball out of his hands, like happened at the end of the game.
Well, this is very fatalistic, and I never obviously don't want injuries at all, but it's like it just starting quarterback at Indiana is a very injury prone position. Like it's been, we've done it before. It's like 9 out of the last 12 years. Like the starting quarterback has not finished the season as the starting quarterback. Like that's partially why I get so frustrated at the beginning of the year where we do this quarterback shuffle. It's like, don't even do it. Like the chance that whoever the starter is going to finish the starter is like, Tom, you will get to change quarterbacks. Like it'll be something that will happen at IU. Like just let it happen naturally. Let the tree fall down naturally. You don't need to cut it down. Like it's going to happen. I also, yeah, I also end with this, that, we're in playoff mode. All right, we're in playoffs. For those fans who don't know, I want playoffs.
Right.
I want to go to that soundbite. My other takeaway is this, that, to anybody out there who has any kind, if Indiana does not win another game this year, to just be like, oh man, bad luck, or we were really close. It's like, no, like this team has glimpses where they have talent. They played Penn State at Penn State to a T. At times they were pushing them around. They played a half of great football against Louisville. They played a really good half against Ohio State. The questions that I leave from those games are like, why are we making the coaching decisions? Why are we playing so conservative? And then why are we not able to do that for longer than small stretches of time? Or why do we take 3 games off and then come back and do it? But that's my other takeaway from this year, is that there is zero reason why Indiana should not win 1 or 2 more games this year. Like the talent is there. Just be like, man, the talent, like to just say there's no talent, this team isn't good. Like that's just fundamentally not true. And so
That's incorrect.
I just would let everybody kind of have that mindset in a positive way. Like there's something here and this team can compete. They're not giving up. They are trying hard. But on the flip side, like there does need to be some expectations. And I think the fan base, we're at kind of a crucial point here. Let's continue to push for this team. Let's continue to support. I think they have the chance to win at Illinois and beat Michigan State, and the last 3 games are all winnable. And honestly, with the Wisconsin quarterback thing, if they play like today, they did today, it's possible. But if they have the opportunity to do that, so let's give them the opportunity to do that. But I would just forecast that if they don't, I do think that you need some seriously hard questions after a game like today, because today showed that they can do it and it is there. It's just not being unlocked enough times during the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I saw somebody on Twitter. I wish I could remember who it was so I could credit them, but they said, there's not really a place for the staff to hide at this point. It's
Yeah.
pretty clear that there's talent on the roster, and if you can't get the talent there, then what are the changes that have to be made, So like I agree. I agree. And I think, the only place where I could see this where the staff could hide is the idea that there were so many transfers this year, and that can keep from having that natural cohesion because they lost all of
Yeah.
their infrastructure when a lot of the other guys transferred out of the program. But I mean, that also speaks to the staff as well. So, there really isn't a place for the staff to hide. Like they do need to get these guys in position where they can win these games, and they almost did it today. And the talent is there. I don't I don't think that this team individually, like I think I think individually the parts are better than what we've seen
Yeah.
the sum of those parts at times this year. The team has looked way worse than the talent that's on the roster, and that's why even if IU finished with like 5 games this year, I still wouldn't feel good moving forward. It's just I don't I don't know, Scott. I'm getting a little nihilistic now.
No. I'm with you. And like I should say, like again, it's I think it's a very unfair. As somebody who's been very critical of the program and was kind of critical today, it's like I fight back to people who are like, oh man, they just suck. No one's good. Like it's just a bad team. They're just gonna lose. It's like no. Like if they lose out, it's not because they're bad or there's just no talent there. It's like there really is. That's my encouragement from today is they played tough, and unlike in 2021 where it's like they look like they just mentally checked out after Michigan State, this team has not checked out. And trying to end on a positive, like so going back to the what positive can we take out of this is I said this earlier in the season, I think after the Akron win, the great Akron win, the amazing Akron overtime win. But looking at this season, I think I said that, Maryland was going to be tough, but Michigan was kind of expecting more out of Rutgers, but I knew Penn State and Wisconsin were going to be tough, but it's like you've got to get to the Illinois game. You've got to keep the team engaged to November 11th. Because once you get there, I still look at Illinois, home to Michigan State, at Purdue. None of those are a road too far. Whether we can win all three or even one, I don't know. You're going to have to execute. You're going to have to play well. You're going to have to do some things correctly. But in my mind, there's no reason why you couldn't win all three of those games. Like those are all teams that I think you stack up very favorably with. You have talent. You probably have superior talent in some areas of the field, and I will look forward to reading it in Bite Side Bison where you will point out. But I think, no question, those three games, there's going to be areas where it's like, look, Indiana's got the edge here. But it's like you have to get there mentally, and that was my biggest fear. Is with probably a drubbing at Michigan, I thought a drubbing at Penn State, maybe a home loss to Wisconsin. Like I was worried that by the time we got there, the team would be so mentally beat down they wouldn't be able to capitalize. I have to give the team and the coaching staff and Tom Allen credit. At least right now, you're really close. You got to get there through Wisconsin. It looks like they have not lost this team mentally, and they're still trying, and they're still pushing as hard as they can, which is important because there is still, we're in playoff mode, Taylor. It's playoff time. But
Yeah.
they have a shot to do something. And even if they, we're kind of talking about a bowl, like it's something it's probably out of the realm of possibility for this team, but you've got to win some Big Ten games. You just can't go 2 for 30 in 3 years. So you've got to find a way to win 1 or 2 of these games, and at least you win 2, you're treading water. It's not awesome. It's better than like winning 1 where it's like, man, it's just like you've got to find some stake in the ground and find a way to get it done. And that's at least my encouragement I'll take away is I think this team will at least be in the right headspace for those last 3 games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, and I think something that a lot of folks aren't really, maybe they're not thinking about or they're not talking about, but I think when you consider all the transfers that they brought in this year and thinking about Indiana as a destination spot for transfers and even for recruits too, um, you don't want to end the season with like 2 wins, with like 2 or 3 wins, because if you're if if you made I don't know what promises were made to these transfers when they were coming in, but if you told them this is a place where they can find success and they can find development and they feel like they didn't find it here, um, that's not great for the future of IU's performance in the transfer portal or on the recruiting trail. So I think that's also something we have to think about too when it comes to finishing this season. Because even if they can't make a bowl, it has to be better than what I have personally forecasted the rest of the season for IU football to be. I was thinking like 3 wins, and I'm thinking maybe 4.
Yeah.
and maybe not picking up one of those last three, probably not the Wisconsin one. That's kind of where I'm at personally. But I think it's important to finish strong, and I share the same concerns that the team be deflated maybe after the Wisconsin game, depending on how that game kind of unfolds. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so we move on to Wisconsin. I look forward to reading you on Bite Size Bison, and I appreciate you hopping on. Quick notice. I'm excited to hear. Put it on Twitter. Whatever if you guys are switching your costumes, maybe you're going with like Snickers or Kit Kats, or if you're sticking to Milky Way come Halloween. I'm excited to hear.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Scott.
Oh, dude, of course. And if you guys are wondering, both of my kids are one is going to be my oldest is going to be Bugs Bunny in a Toon Squad outfit from the original Space Jam, not the new one, the original Space Jam.
Right.
And then my youngest is going to be an ant. Because he wants us to. The ant cost Ant-Man is very easy to find. Just a straight ant is not easy to find online. There's spiders. He's like, that's not an ant. There's like insects. Not, like, he wants to be an ant. So I kind of threw that at my wife. I'm like, all right, you're going to figure out how to make a thorax out of a pillowcase, and that's what you have to look forward to, Taylor. The costumes get harder, and kids want to be all kinds of random things. And then like a week ago, he's like, I may not want to be an ant. It's like, no, you're an ant. Like we've already bought the stuff. Like you are, ant is locked in. So. We'll see how that goes on Tuesday night for those of you trick-or-treating. And then, Wisconsin back home again, November 4th, a noon kickoff. Hopefully the weather should be nice and crisp, but we shall see. But Taylor, awesome to have you. Read him on Bite Size Bison, and he might be on with Galen for the preview. And as always, for everyone else out there, I appreciate you guys listening. We'll have more basketball preview podcasts, and both Taylor and CrimsonCast will be here through the rest of the football season, whatever it brings. But I thank you all for listening. And this is Scott for CrimsonCast, signing off.